You are locked onto the Texas Rangers and locked on to the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm Bryce Patrick, host of the Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is a crossover episode talking all things Rangers and Rays. I am joined by Ulysses Zambrano, host of the Locked On Rays podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before because BetOnline is where the game starts. Ulysses, how are you doing today? Welcome to the show. I don't think we've done a crossover before in the several years that we've both been working for this network.
No, we've this is our first time, so finally it's good to finally see you over a screen and interacting with you. We've only interacted with either memes or snazzy comebacks at each other on our Twitter DMs, but that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is good to see you in person. These teams, for not, I feel like they never ever play. When they do, there have been some I don't know if it's spicy. There have been some important moments, and there have been some pretty key trades that have been happening. But before we get into that, we'll definitely get into the Nathaniel Lowe trade, the Pete Fairbanks trade, and the robbery of the rightful AL Rookie of the Year last year. I just want to know, where are the Rays at this year? I know it's been the Rays have a really good team, and there was a lot of talk about the Rays having an offense that was better than they've had in several years. And obviously, like, we know the Rays are just a pitching factory, one of the best teams in all of Major League Baseball at developing pitching, and this year is no different. But where are the Rays right now, and what is important happening in this month of September for this Tampa Bay team?
Well, the Rays right now were in a very odd place that they didn't think they would find themselves in, which was be at play with the division, which was insane when August started because they had a 15-game lead. The Yankees did on the Rays, 15. And when they came to the Trop about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks, the Rays were so close to sweeping them after being in the Bronx and almost sweeping them too, so that the actual lead became down to 3.5 at its slimmest. Unfortunately, the Rays were just knocked out the last 2 games in the Bronx, so the division is no longer really the mission, the goal anymore. The goal is get that top wild card spot, which they have everything in their hands to be able to do this. So because they have actually 5 games in Toronto in 4 days, which they've split 2 so far at the time of this recording. And then they have 4 more with the Toronto Blue Jays at home. So that's their biggest rivalry, is the Toronto Blue Jays. And so they need to beat that Blue Jays team, but they're entrenched right now in the wild card seeding position. But it's so close, Bryce, that you lose 1 game and then you go from being the top wild card to the last wild card. It's insane right now what you're seeing from the Mariners, the Rays, and then the Blue Jays. It's just a head-to-head that's going to go probably until the end of the season.
I've just really loved watching this wild card race. I wish the Rangers were a part of it. They are very far back from being a part of it, but I have so many teams that are in that wild card race that I really like. All of them. I have, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Orioles because they have so many former Rangers on there. I have a friend who works for the Orioles, so I have a genuine rooting interest there. I really like a lot of these young Blue Jays players, even though the Blue Jays of old, with Jose Bautista and a bunch of guys that just have very punchable faces that Ruben Odor took advantage of. And I really like the Rays. I mean, they're underdogs, and I know they're fans. There's not a whole lot of them, but the ones that are, they're real diehard fans, and I think they deserve every bit of success. I love seeing them thrive there. But those stupid Yankees, if the Yankees were just bad, then all of the teams that I like, I also have a little soft spot for Seattle. I probably won't once they are terrorizing the Rangers for the next decade or so with Julio Rodriguez. But there's a lot of really great teams that you want to root for that haven't had a lot of title, that haven't been like these juggernauts that are like, what, I want these young kids to go out there and thrive. But I do want, speaking of young kids and rookies, I have to let you know that the Sporting News, I have always said the Sporting News Rookie of the Year is the only Rookie of the Year that is worth a darn, because last year they selected Adolis Garcia as their rightful Rookie of the Year. And the frauds who were voting in the Pro Baseball Writers Association of America, whatever the actual term is, they fictitiously selected Randy Arozarena last year, and I just want you to know that was a falsehood and it was not deserved.
Well, the BBWA writers, they chose the right man. What can I say? The 2020 guy, Randy Arozarena. Look, I thought it was going to be closer than what it ended up being. I think honestly, last year was great when you saw so many young guys being able to have the possibility. I mean, the Rays, selfishly speaking, and maybe biased speaking, obviously here, yeah, it's Shane McClanahan, Randy Arozarena, and Wander Franco. It's like they were like, look, one of these guys is gonna get it. We're just gonna get it by sheer volume of opportunity here. But I mean, it's you've seen it now for the last what 4 or 5 years, Bryce. I mean, the guys like Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna Jr., Vladimir Guerrero. I mean, they're just the talent. Adley Rutschman this year, Julio Rodriguez. I mean, that. Tell me that there isn't going to be a Bryce next year in Orioles fandom when Julio takes it, or in Seattle fandom when Adley wins it. It's been crazy the amount of energy that this young guys have come up and been able to just play with the big boys, and your fandom is Josh Young. Didn't he just come up about a week ago? And I think he has like 20 plate appearances. I know the strikeouts are a little bit high right now, but the dude has been a stud always, and he's from Texas Tech, so I'm sure that you've been
Yep, that's my
seeing
guy.
him for a while, yeah, right?
Yeah, I saw him as a freshman. My last year at Texas Tech was his first year. My only scouting claim to fame was watching him that year and saying, you know what, this guy is going to be a first round pick. He's going to be a big leaguer, and you know what, he has made me right in both of them. It's not because I'm smart. It's just because Josh Young is really freaking good. And yeah, I think he's definitely going to be in that Rookie of the Year race. He came up last Friday. So as this episode is coming out exactly a week ago, it was a little bit later than I thought. He had a couple injuries. Like if he was completely healthy, I think in 2021, around like maybe even June of that year, he would have made his major league debut.
Wow.
But he had a foot injury, a stress fracture in his foot that kept him out until the beginning of June in 2021. This year, he had the shoulder injury that they thought his entire season was going to be lost, but he rehabbed really, really well. It healed very quickly, and he ended up playing a lot faster than the Rangers had initially thought. Played about a month in AAA, played about a week in the Arizona Complex League while he was rehabbing, and he looks like the real freaking deal. But I was just really happy that Adolis Garcia and Randy Arozarena, both guys who were former Cardinals, who I absolutely hate, I love that both of them were given up for basically nothing and ended up thriving and looking fantastic. Adolis was in a I believe he got cash considerations. I think $200K was about what the Rangers got for him. And the Rangers even DFA'd him at the beginning of that year, and they did not believe that he would come up and make a difference. But actually, his coming out party was in Tampa. We're going to get into that a little bit about these two great players. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your pro and college football needs and sports info this season. Ulysses, do you have a pro football team, a college football team that you would want to do a lot of betting on? I know that the Bucks are there, and they are a pretty good football team.
You gotta give it to TB12 / the GOAT there, so I would go Bucks.
Yeah, there was a football game that was allegedly played between the teams from both of our
I don't know. You tell me if there was or if there wasn't.
Allegedly, I am saying that I did not witness it. I'm pretending that it didn't happen and that this football season didn't happen for the NFL. But if your football team is actually good, or you want to make some money betting on teams that are not the Dallas Cowboys, you can go to BetOnline. It's the fastest and easiest way to check out on all of your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. So you don't even have to think about football, because I know if you're a Cowboys fan, you really don't want to right now. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline, it's where the game starts. So it took about a month for Adolis Garcia to finally get called up, and I want to say that his first series in the big leagues was in Tampa. I know that was definitely his coming out party. He had his first home run with the Rangers there. Actually, his first major league home run. Did play 3 games in Texas in 2020. I honestly could not remember any little bit of that, to be totally honest, but he had an absolute coming out party in Tampa Bay that started off a fantastic month of May, where he ended up becoming an all-star. Just a really, really great season for him. Do you remember that series and how frustrating that was? Because they were not just big home runs, but they were clutch home runs, and that's something that he has done very well in his major league career so far.
Bryce, I remember it vividly because he ruined my birthday. I went. It was. I went to the drop. I took the time. I was like, I'm gonna go to St. Pete because for people in Texas here, the Trop is not in Tampa. You actually have to go to St. Pete, which is like at least an hour away. There are more
So it's like
dolphins surrounding.
Arlington to Dallas.
Yeah, I mean it's like an hour. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there are more dolphins living near the Trop than human beings. When people are like, why is it only blue seats around in the Trop? Well, because there are more dolphins. The dolphins can get in, and those are the people that live, or those are the creatures that live
Hey,
near
let
the
the
Trop.
dolphins in,
Dolphins.
okay?
Let the dolphins in. Do they pay taxes? I don't know. Ask them.
Maybe.
Anyway, maybe they do. So I take time off work. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be my birthday. It's gonna be great. It's the Texas Rangers are coming in. Oh boy, I'm gonna see the party. Boy, Adolis just ruined my whole weekend plan. Like, I mean, it was crazy. So I do remember it vividly. It was a sucky series. But no, he's a monster, man. I mean, I think the only flaw, and maybe obviously you see him more than I do, Obvi, but it's the walks. It's the lack of plate discipline that he just wants to go up there and swing. And some guys can be really good at that, and they don't have to work their walks, but most guys need that on base, and it just seems like he just doesn't want to do that. He wants to swing the bat. He's up there to swing. He's gonna swing just like Francisco Mejia for the Rays, their catcher, who's been the backup catcher, but now has been the primary because of Mike Zunino being out the whole season. He's like that too. He's like Adolis. He's like, I have a bat. I get three strikes. I'm swing all the time. Is that the only flaw that you see from Adolis?
Yeah, for the most part, there's also been a little bit of an issue. Last year, he had a fantastic first half, fantastic pre-All-Star break, very deserving of that All-Star nod. But in the back half, everything went to crap. Everything was awful for the Rangers. Adolis completely fell off. This is his first full major league season with the 162 game workload, and he is a guy who expended a lot of effort. You watch him play one game, you can see he is just firing on all cylinders, giving 300% in every game. So he's had to take a few more days off, but that's made him a lot better in the second half. But yeah, the walk rate is not really where you want it. It's gotten better. It's still not great, but he has gotten a lot more selective with his pitches. And the Rangers really just got like a 3-4 win player out of absolutely nowhere, which is a huge, huge win for them.
Crazy.
Another guy who right now is a 3-win player, could end up being a 4-win player, is Nathaniel Lowe. I gotta say, at the time, this is one of the dumbest things that he has made me look dumber than pretty much any other player, because at the time, I still stand by this, at the time it making sense. But when the Rangers made this trade, they're trading for a first baseman, which they had Ronald Guzman, who was just fine. I don't know if you remember in that. I think that exact same series, Ronald Guzman, for some stupid reason, was playing the outfield, which he never should have done. He was a fantastic defensive first baseman. He is called the Condor. He listed at 6'7". I'm pretty sure he's 6'12", because he's got just the most ridiculous arm span. But he was a fantastic defensive first baseman. And for some stupid reason, they put him in the outfield. And he tore his ACL, and the Rangers basically cut him at the end of the year. Now, I thought, okay, this guy's fine. You've invested a lot of money. He and Nomar Mazara back in 2000 and I want to say 2012 were both the highest paid international signing bonuses of all time out of the Dominican. Both of those guys basically that pretty much single-handedly reformed the entire system down there of all right, we need a bonus pool because Texas is just getting crazy out there. And funny enough that neither one of them have turned into stars, which is a whole other thing I don't even want to get into because it just upsets me a whole lot. But at the time, I thought you're not trading for a position of need. You're trading a bunch of minor league, lotto tickets, and the guys you cannot afford to trade away when you finally, after 3 years of stalling around in mediocrity, were embracing the rebuild. Those are not the guys that you can afford to trade, and that's not the kind of guy that you want to trade for. A guy you already kind of have a passable position. And I thought last year, maybe he'll be fine, decent OBP, had a lot of power he never really tapped into, and and he was terrible defensively. This year, he is still very terrible defensively, in the bottom 1% of outs above average at first base, but offensively he has been a revelation. He's hitting 308, top 10 in Major League Baseball in batting average. Not that that really matters, but the OPS is fantastic as well. 865, got 24 home runs. 12 of those have coming after the All-Star break. And he's got an OPS over 1,000 since the All-Star break in, I believe, 50 games. It's been a lot, and he has been crushing it. How do you feel about this trade in retrospect, and how did you feel about it at the time?
I think that when he put up that season last year with 264 and a 771 OPS, I was like, that's good. Like, wow, okay, so he's going to be a solid guy. At the time of the trade, see, this is where every fandom is a little bit different, right? As a Rays fan, I'm used to, for like the majority of time, is when we make a trade, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Like, I might not see it all, and I might get hurt, or I might think, why did they only get Osleivis, Basabe, and Roberto Hernandez? Like, who are these guys? Like, why are these the names coming back? Really, Nate Lowe is already like major league ready. Look back now, I think we made that trade 2 years ago?
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think it was after. I think it was after 2020 because 2021 was his
Exactly.
first season here. So
Exactly. So after 2020, maybe the winter meeting. So we're talking now full 2 years later. They're both top 30, I think, by Baseball America prospects, both Basabe and Heriberto. Now,
you also got Alexander Ovales as well, who I liked.
You're right.
I liked all of those guys, and they're all pretty solid. And looking at where they're doing now, I intentionally have not looked at them until like right now, because I was like, knowing the Rays and their development, these guys are going to turn to freaking stars. We're going to get into that a little bit more. But first, this word from our sponsors. Now, these are the guys that just really frustrated me. There is another guy, a player to be named later, Carl Chester, who has not quite worked out quite as well. He is 26 years old, and he has not done a whole lot. He has been he's back with Texas now in Round Rock. Actually, the last minor league action he had was in Round Rock in 2021, which I don't exactly know what went on there. He was with Milwaukee for a while. I don't know, but he was listed the player to be named later there. I just got completely sidetracked. Osleivis Basabe is a guy who I believe was in Low A or the Arizona Complex League at the time when the Rangers traded him. I thought, okay, this guy has shown some promise there. Same with Roberto Hernandez. He was a guy who played left field, right field, and first base. He played in the Arizona Fall League last year. This year he is 22 years old in High A with Bowling Green. He's got an 867 OPS, 24 home runs in 119 games. That is deeply upsetting to see. But at the same time, the Rangers got a sure thing right now. And the Rangers needed a sure thing. They needed an above average bat. Their offense in 2020 and 2021 was absolutely horrendous. Absolutely awful. And this is a Texas Rangers team who, for the entire history of the franchise, has been, they can hit really well, but they can never get pitching. Now they've got a new stadium where pitching isn't miserable, and like it's more of a neutral kind of park. But last year was the worst offensive year I've ever seen of Texas Rangers baseball. So having Nathaniel Lowe even being like, fine, pretty good, was like by far the best hitter the Rangers had at the end of the year after Joey Gallo was traded away.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this is why it's very odd to say win-win trades in baseball. I don't know much about football or basketball for that matter on how trades usually go, but it's really odd to say in baseball, oh, that was a win-win trade. Like usually one guy is gonna bite the bullet, and so, but for this, you guys needed Nate Lowe and Nathaniel Lowe. What he provided right here, right now, that's what you wanted. And for the Rays, they had Ji-Man Choi, they have Yandy Diaz, and they like that platoon between lefty and righty. And now Ji-Man Choi was a better glove than Nate Lowe. And so what you're telling me
that's not hard. Everyone's a better glove than Nate Lowe.
Well, and that was his big thing. That was big thing in Tampa. Like, is he going to improve with the glove? And that's
y'all played him at third base and in the outfield. That just like blows my freaking mind. Y'all did that on purpose.
Ours too. Ours too. I was like, "What are you doing?" But I think they did it. I think that was third base. Good memory. That was the wild card game, if I'm not mistaken, in Oakland, and I think he did it for like 3 innings or something like that. It was an odd, Kevin Cash.
Okay, he did it. Okay, this is his defensive games in the big leagues. At Tampa in 2019, he had 4 games. Only one started at third base in 2019, and
Okay.
only first base and third base. Okay, he did not play the outfield. I thought he did, but he did not. At least not in the
Okay.
regular season. He had 2 games at third base, and only one of those was started in 2020 with Tampa Bay. So those are the regular season. He's only
Insane.
played first and third, which just still blows my freaking
Insane.
mind.
Yeah. No.
Also, you talked about the
I-
platoon split. Nathaniel Lowe is hitting better against lefties this year than he is against righties, which is just kind of nuts. A 988 OPS in 164 plate appearances against lefties and an 814 in 397 against righties. But the thing that he could not do last year, and the thing that made me most concerned about him, and I'm sure was the same way in Tampa, is that he could not hit fastballs with high velocity. This year, the Rangers brought in a new offensive coordinator. That's his title, Donnie Ecker, who did a really good job of turning around the Giants offense last year, and specifically with them hitting fastballs. He abandoned coach pitch in the pregame warmups and instead started using a pitching machine that could more accurately replicate velo.
Yep.
And I think that really helped him because I'm sure he mashed the breaking stuff and the off-speed stuff pretty well with Tampa. That's what he did last year. And this year, he's not even great against fastballs. He's just like fine. And for him to be able to mash against breaking stuff and off-speed stuff and to be not be able to be taken advantage of with fastballs, like that is what is taking him from like pretty good to like otherworldly, like he's been in like 2 months.
But Bryce, I'm just a very slight tangent here. If you have a calculus exam coming up, do you practice for that calculus exam by doing Algebra 1? No, that would be silly. Why are you throwing, nuggets out there before you're going to face Clayton Kershaw, before you're going to face Martin Perez, before you're going to face Shane McClanahan? Like,
I would like to
make
just
sense.
not face Shane McClanahan, to be all honest.
It's crazy. He might come out of the IL very soon, and you guys actually might be the first team to meet
please
up with
no.
him this
Please
weekend
no.
when he comes up. But he might face Toronto in that last 5-game series that they have. So we'll see. We'll see, Bryce. But yeah, I've
I
never
save him.
understood that
Save him for that. You're gonna need him against that. That's what it is. John Gray actually just came off the IL as well. The Rangers are in a bad way with starting pitching, and like I would do a lot of really bad things to be able to develop pitching like the Rays have, like just really, really bad things. The Rangers have a lot more starting pitching like in their system than they have in years past. They've done a terrible job. The most successful homegrown pitcher the Rangers have had in the last, I want to say 10 years is Martin Perez, and he was not that good until like this year. Like it's crazy how hard it is to develop pitching. Now they've got Jack Leiter, they've got Kumar Rocker, they've got Brock Porter, and well, Cole Winn forgot how to throw strikes. Before that, he was really promising.
But I mean, the next year's rotation is going to be pretty nasty with the Leiter, Rocker, and then you got John Gray. Maybe Martin Perez comes back.
They need to have Martin Perez come back because like they just Leiter's not ready next year. It may be towards the end of the year, but like I thought he'd be coming a lot faster. He has had a lot more difficulties actually having to adjust for these hitters that are really good because he's been the best player at every league he's been in probably since he was like 8 years old, if not like forever. And this is the first time where it's like, oh crap, like there's some really good players here. And like the SEC is some good competition, but like it's no Double A. There's no Corbin Carrolls there. There's no other really great Double A players that I'm blanking on that have been there. And so Rocker, we'll see. He's not pitching at all during the regular season. He's probably almost I'm like 99% sure they haven't said, but he's almost certainly going to make his debut in the fall league because he's only pitched 20 innings this year. I would have liked to have seen him pitch in August, but it's fine, whatever. They say the shoulder's healthy, and if you get anywhere near the top 25 percentile of his outcome, that is going to look like a really good pick for the slot they gave him to also get Brock Porter as well.
Well, you know who also has a healthy shoulder?
Who?
Pete Fairbanks.
Pete Fairbanks,
Crazy
my
eyes.
my walking aneurysm. No fault of his own, but just every time I see him, I think, that would have
Yeah.
been freaking nice.
Yeah.
Pete Fairbanks, for those of you who don't know, who those of you who are casual Rangers fans who don't want to hate yourself, just skip forward about 5 minutes because you're just gonna hate yourself hearing this next part. Just go on to the next episode. But Fairbanks was a guy who came through the Rangers system. He had, I want to say it was either his first or second Tommy John surgery. And just out of nowhere, went from throwing like 90 to 92 to like 95 to like 99. I think he went all the way from low A, it might have been high A, all the way to the big leagues in like a 2 month span. He was just absolutely dominating everybody. He had just the nastiest slider, incredibly nasty fastball. And I'm just like, well, we kind of suck this year. So like, let's try and get a guy with a little bit higher upside. There's this Nick Solak guy that the Rays have. He doesn't really have a position, but he can just hit. He can just hit. He can hit really well at all levels. And he's like a really great guy. Well,
Right.
he came to the big leagues, and for 33 games, he hit. He hit really well in 2019. You thought, okay, here's this 24-year-old kid. He might not really have a position. He might end up being like left field / DH, whatever. But he can hit. And then he didn't hit. And then he didn't hit again. And he still can't hit at the major league level. And it has just not worked out at all. He's played in 34 games this year. He was supposed to be the left field platoon with Brad Miller. Brad Miller was going to hit against the righties. Nick Solak was going to hit against the lefties. And they both just sucked. They were both just terrible. Meanwhile, Pete Fairbanks has just had the nastiest fastball in almost all of baseball with an incredibly nasty slider.
Bryce.
And, a Rangers pen that could really use a Pete Fairbanks. Not that there is a single bullpen in all of Major League Baseball that could not use a Pete Fairbanks.
Right, but he has increased velocity from last year. Like he was out until maybe late July this year, so he missed. So I don't know if it's the arm being fresh, but I mean, because he was injured, he's only had about 20 innings worth of work this season. But the four-seam fastball was sitting at 97.1 miles an hour last year. It's at 99.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now on Baseball Savant. It's not only the 99th percentile in velocity, it's 96th percentile in speed in spin. Like,
yeah.
One of the things, he reminds me of Matt Bush. I don't know if you know much about Matt Bush.
Yeah.
Matt Bush was a guy.
Yeah.
For Rays fans who don't know, Matt Bush was a guy who was the former number 1 overall pick, had a lot of issues off the field, spent some time in prison. Oh, he was? I didn't realize that he spent time with the Rays. I thought he was drafted. I know he's drafted by the Padres. I didn't realize he spent time with the Rays.
He's I think Brandon Geyer might have been the guy who lent him his SUV, and then he got in a car crash. Matt Bush did.
And
Brandon Geyer SUV.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and he spent several years in prison. The Rangers helped bring him out and rehabilitate him. They had some success with another former number 1 overall pick who had a lot of troubles in Josh Hamilton, another former Ray. But they did a really good job of helping him. He's one of those few success stories. A lot of times baseball kind of fetishizes comeback player, whatever, blah 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 blah, and they don't really actually learn from their mistakes and get better. But Matt Bush really did, and that was something that really encouraged me about him. But his fastball was like this. It was 98, 99 miles an hour with this just insane spin rate and an insane slider, and that's that's Pete Fairbanks too. So
It is.
Really hurts to lose him. The Rangers actually did trade Matt Bush to the Brewers this year. He is still in Major League Baseball after missing 2 seasons. Really cool to see him, and glad that he can go be on an actual good team because the Rangers are not that right now. They do have their pitching staff back and mostly healthy. Cole Reagans, who I don't think we're going to see this weekend, is finally back. This is the second start off the IL. He's starting literally right now. John Gray had his first start back off the IL against the Marlins. Looked fantastic, which... Again,
so
we
Marlins will see offense. John Gray.
I think so. He threw 45 pitches, went 3 2/3 innings in that one, and struck out, I believe, 5. So I think he's going to be on a 60 pitch count, but I do believe he will be, I think, probably on Sunday, if my math is correct. I'm not a math person, so my math might technically be off, but I think you'll see him on Sunday. And I think
You
you'll also
guys,
see an improved Martin Perez, who has been just the absolute linchpin of this horrendous
he
Rangers
has.
rotation.
I mean, from all baseball, I mean, he's just been the icon, the guy who's like, who's breaking it in Texas, and it's definitely been Martin Perez. So no, you guys are probably going to see a bunch of different arms because of this 5-game, 4-day series with the Toronto Blue Jays. They're just going to be expending all of these arms. So it's going to be either guys getting called up from AAA, making spot starts. Maybe you see a Corey Kluber getting some extra rest, so maybe you see him on Friday.
Don't even talk to me
I
about Corey
know.
Kluber.
I
Oh
know, dude. I know.
God.
It sucks.
Uh,
Yeah.
well,
If you
I
guys
would
don't
take
know the
him.
story about Corey Kluber and the Texas Rangers,
Go
if you're a
look at
Texas Ranger fan, don't look into
even
it. And
worse.
if you
It's even worse. It's even worse than Pete Fairbanks. There's Emmanuel Clase, who was a
Yes.
guy throwing 102 mile an hour frickin' cutters for
Yes.
the
No,
Rangers. Got
it's disgusting.
an
Yeah.
inning for a guy from the Dallas Fort Worth Greater Metroplex in a stupid 2020 season where they had the worst offense in baseball and thought, you know what, we're going to compete because they had Lance Lynn and Mike Minor and a 2-time Cy Young winner. This 2-time Cy Young winner pitched literally one inning, had a shoulder injury that kept him out for the entire that season.
Wasn't it 12
It was,
pitches?
I don't know how many. It was literally one inning. It was a
Yeah.
shutout inning. It was really nice and fun for one whole inning.
Didn't they have a
And
bobblehead too, and they had to cancel it or something like
yeah,
that?
they did. And then the next year, the Rangers didn't take that option. He signed with the Yankees and came back and threw a no hitter
No
in
hitter.
Texas.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
an ultimate middle finger. Not his fault.
yeah.
Wish his shoulder
Yeah.
would have held up, and
Yeah.
wish they
He's a
could
good
have
guy.
still had
We like him.
Emmanuel Clase. Yeah, you go
That would be
enjoy
nice.
him. Just can you
Yeah.
just like trade the Rangers like 2 or 3 competent major league pitchers? Like I don't. I'll give you my
We gave
right
you Nate
arm.
Lowe and we gave you Solak. You gave us Pete Fairbanks.
You did
Well,
not. You
actually, Matt Moore signed with you guys, and that's an old friend of ours.
Yeah, and he is having the season of his life. The curve, he has a new reworked curveball that's actually really good. He is looking
Good for
fantastic.
him.
He did start in the major leagues against the Rangers in that
You
2010.
remember? Yes.
Yeah, of course I do. It was the first time the Rangers actually won a playoff series. Both of their first playoffs. Well, I guess they also had
Yeah.
the Yankees that year, but their first 2 divisional series wins. They're actually only 2 divisional series wins in franchise history are both against the Rays and not against those stupid Blue Jays. But this is going to be a fun series. If you could just have some guys on your major league roster, or even in AAA. I'd even take some like low A Rays starting pitching to
It would be
fix
fun
this
to do another
hodgepodge.
trade. I
Yeah,
would be okay with another Nate
it's go-
Lowe, Pete
it's gonna
Fairbanks situation. Yeah,
whatever
that'd
it's
be
going to
nice.
be, it's definitely going to be lopsided one way or the other. I have no idea which way it's going to work because I've looked really dumb on both of those trades because I thought both of them, I felt the exact opposite way as I should have when both of them happened. But best of luck to y'all in the playoffs. I'll be rooting for y'all, and I'm rooting for everybody, so it's not really a heavy rooting interest. Glad that you can enjoy Pete Fairbanks if I can't, and glad that I can enjoy Nathaniel Lowe if you can't. Thank y'all
Yes.
so much for listening. Ulysses, where can the fine folks listening to Locked On Rangers find you and your work?
They can find me on Twitter at Sembrano Ulysses. If you're looking at the screen right now, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for subscribing. You can also subscribe to Locked On Race, and we're also on YouTube, and you can do that, and it would help us immensely. We're right now at around 460 subscribers, so up and coming pod, not like Locked On Rangers on YouTube, which is killing it, but we're getting there. Okay, we're getting there. Small, small steps by small steps.
I will give you my key to success. Have your baseball team spend $500 billion in 3 days. That's it.
That's gonna be rough for us.
Spend $500 billion in like 3 years. I don't know.
Okay,
5 years.
good.
Maybe 5.
Okay.
Let's say 5. For those listening to Locked On Rays, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. That's Patrick with no C, Bryce with an I, as the Lord intended it. Sorry, Bryce Harper, you spell your name wrong. Totally embarrassing for you. You can also follow Locked On Rangers on Twitter at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube. Locked On Rangers YouTube subscribers, go follow and subscribe to Locked On Rays. Help them hit that 1,000 mark. Help out our friends Ulysses. Man, this is gonna be a lot of fun. I am glad that at least if I'm not enjoying the season, the end of the season, then somebody is. I'm gonna enjoy every bit of not Pete Fairbanks pitching against the Rangers, and I'm going to enjoy every bit of Adolis Garcia, the rightful AL Rookie of the Year, hopefully thriving yet again in Tampa. Ulysses, thank you so much for joining me. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.